What's up, everyone? This is Xavier, your host, and welcome to the 210 Stockyard. Welcome to part 2 of the 51-man roster breakdowns. Last episode, I went in and covered the North Division of the XFL, so in part 2, we're going to cover all the teams in the South. I'm going to go a little off course, and I'm not going to follow the graphic exactly. The first team I'm going to cover is the Orlando Guardians. Then we'll do the Arlington Renegades, followed by the Houston Roughnecks, and then I'll finish it off with my San Antonio Brahmas. Stay tuned to the end where I will give you very bold predictions, or my very bold predictions, on how I think the season's going to end, who will be in the playoffs, and who's going to win the championship. And if you didn't get a chance, or if you skipped over the North Division, please like and subscribe and go ahead and watch that video for a full breakdown as well. But here we go, let's go ahead and dive into the Orlando Guardians. So they kept 25 players on offense and 26 players on defense. And as I look at this roster, they are the most balanced just by the X's and O's, meaning you've got 51 players on the team and the coach did his best to split it down the line evenly. So obviously you couldn't have a 25-25 split, so he gave himself a 25-26 split. So on paper, again, by the X's and O's, this is a balanced roster just because it's even, damn near even on both sides. But when you get down to it, so on the offense, 3 quarterbacks, only 2 running backs, 7 wide receivers, 3 tight ends, 8 offensive linemen, and 2 special team players. So to me, that seems like the offense is already lacking. You've only given yourself 2 running back options, and you have 8 offensive linemen, while the rest of the league tends to have 9. So I'm not too sure what the plan is with the offense there, but just by looking at that, it doesn't look very strong. I don't see Orlando as being a run-heavy offense, obviously just by only having 2 choices. So if I were a betting man, most of the offense is gonna be in the air. They're gonna rely mostly on the passing game and the defense. So the defense, by the way, you've got 10 defensive linemen, 6 linebackers, 6 corners, and 4 safeties. So it looks like you can always have a flowing rotation of players in and out on the defense. So I don't know, maybe his plan is just to have a stronger defense to kind of outlast all the other teams. I'm not so sure. Keep in mind, though, that this is Coach Terrell Buckley's first time as a head coach for a program. In college, he was a record-setting cornerback for Florida State. He was also an All-American, and he was also a Jim Thorpe Award recipient. And he's also in the College Football Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, though, and this is just my opinion, guys, his resume is not going to translate to his team. I do see Orlando as being the worst team at the end of the season, and I don't mean it's because they're not going to be good. Record-wise, I think they will probably have the worst record this year. Now, a major contributor for that assumption has to do with their quarterback room. So their options at quarterback are the Broncos' first-round draft bust, Paxton Lynch, and this guy, Quinton Dormady. Now, for any of my locals to San Antonio or natives to San Antonio, you might recognize his name from Boerne, Texas. Boerne is a little small town just outside of San Antonio, Texas. So Quinton is going to be, I guess, a local favorite. However, he didn't stand out much in college. He did start at Tennessee, then ended up with Houston, and then ultimately ended up with Central Michigan. So in my opinion, Orlando's strongest option will be Florida State's DeAndre Francois. Now, I may be saying the last name wrong. I'm not sure how he pronounced it. It looks French to me, but I do know that he's from Haiti. So it may have a different pronunciation. I'm sorry if I got it wrong. And like the coach, he is also a Florida State alumni. He was actually very impressive when he did play at Florida State. He did miss his sophomore year there due to an injury, so he had to miss that whole season. He was forced to actually leave Florida his senior year when his then girlfriend posted a video on social media alleging domestic violence. Once the video got viral, Florida was forced to release him from the team, and he ended up settling to play with Hampton that year. Crazy thing is, after he transfers and kind of ruins his college career, The girlfriend then comes out and says she made it all up. So, not cool. He went undrafted and then signed with the fan-controlled football league in 2020. He does have a favorable target in someone that you guys might recognize, Charleston Rambo. This guy was a pretty good wideout for Oklahoma for the Sooners. He actually was second in line behind CeeDee Lamb while he was there. Next up, Arlington. So the Renegades kept 27 players on offense and 24 players on defense. Again, that's the formula that I like, the 27-24 split. So they have 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 6 wideouts, 4 tight ends, 8 offensive linemen, and 3 on special teams. While the defense has 6 defensive linemen, 9 linebackers, 6 corners, and 3 safeties. This is by far the most fundamental roster that I've seen in the XFL. I think they have just the right amount of players in each position. This is the kind of roster that does allow for good rotations on both sides of the ball. I guess that's what you can expect from head coach Bob Stoops. So if you guys don't know who this is, he's well known for making the Oklahoma Sooners a powerhouse program during his tenure there. He also won a national championship with them in 2001. He was also previously head coach of the Houston Roughnecks during the XFL's 2020 season. And while he doesn't have experience at the pro level, at the NFL level, Bob Stoops is still a very good coach. And that's coming from a Longhorn fan. Again, I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I love my Longhorns, but Bob Stoops gave us hell during his tenure there. And he also sent a lot of players to the NFL, so very confident in his coaching ability. Now, my pick for QB1 for the Renegades is going to be none other than Kyle Slaughter. So he wasn't really much of a college standout quarterback, but he did spend time between 6 different NFL squads from 2017 to 2022. And in fact, in the 2022 season, he was second in the USFL in passing yards and helped carry his team to the semifinals. Now, they didn't win, but he was still very productive in the USFL. The Renegades also have a very formidable running back room being led by Keith Ford and then backed up by Davion Smith. Ford played at Oklahoma and then transferred to A&M. He was a 5-star recruit, by the way, in high school. He did go undrafted but signed with the Buffalo Bills and spent some time with them. He actually has playing experience in the NFL during the regular season. He was LaShawn McCoy's backup during the 2020 season. Davion Smith is a solid backup. He was picked up during the supplemental draft. He played for Michigan. He did spend some time with the Dolphins and the then Redskins. He was also a part of the AAF. He played with the Orlando Apollos. And in 2020 was a part of the then Tampa Bay Vipers team. So 2 very solid options to run your ground game on. They also happen to have a star defensive player in Devontae Bowsby. So this guy, my San Antonians will recognize for his time playing in the AAF with the San Antonio Commanders. And though it was a short season for the playing time that he did play, he did lead the AAF in pass breakups and interceptions. Once the AAF dissolved, he did sign with the Denver Broncos and then continued to kind of bounce around practice squads in the NFL. But this guy is a very disruptive DB. So not a bad person. Not a bad person to have on defense. Definitely helps make them look tough. Next up, Houston. So the Roughnecks have the blend that I like, the 27 on offense and 24 on defense. However, their offense does look a little different than the other teams in the league because they have 1 tight end. So 3 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 8 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 9 linemen, and 2 special team players. So when I look at that, I immediately think it's going to be an air raid or arena football style offense. Now the defense still looks good with 9 defensive linemen, 6 linebackers, 9 corners, and they have no safeties listed on the roster. Now I know that cornerbacks are also safeties, It was just a little odd that they didn't list any as specifically a safety. So with 3 quarterbacks, the 4 running backs, 8 wideouts, which I think is the most on any team, and 1 tight end, it looks to me as though this is going to be a very fast-paced football team, not just in offense, but in defense too. So the defense, assuming that they really don't have safeties, I'm assuming they're just going to blitz all the time or kind of play some kind of a weird zone. And the offense looks to me, again, like it's just going to be air raid. You're going to line up the wideouts. You may use some of them as a converted tight end. But with that many options, even at running back, it looks to me like they're just going to be throwing the ball most of the time. Houston, by the way, is being coached by a Houston legend, Wade Phillips. He was the defensive coordinator for the LA Rams when they won Super Bowl 50. He's been a head coach in the NFL for the Cowboys, the Bills, and the Broncos. He did play locally at the University of Houston when he was in college. He was a linebacker. And when he actually began coaching, he studied under his dad, another famous coach, Bum Phillips. So Houston is in very good, capable hands, coaching-wise, under Wade Phillips. I do think he's going to have very specific schemes for the players that he selected. And again, having the offense that they have set up, I'm really curious to see how he utilizes that second pass option. Now, he's done something interesting with quarterback, and I think the pretty obvious choice for QB1 for them is going to be Hawaii's Cole McDonald. While at Hawaii, Cole did run, or is accustomed to running, a 4 wide receiver set type offense, which looks like what the Houston's going to have with 8 wide receivers. His final year at Hawaii, he was actually 3rd in the NCAA in passing yards. He had over 4,100 yards. Now, ahead of him at number 2, by the way, that year was Joe Burrow at LSU. That same year, Hawaii also beat out a Zach Wilson-led BYU team in the Hawaii Bowl. He was selected in the 7th round by Tennessee, but was released before the end of camp. This was mainly due to the COVID year where they didn't have a chance to really have preseason games. And that did have a major effect on the team being able to analyze him and then keep him. I do like what Coach Wade Phillips did by also selecting one of McDonald's favorite targets from Hawaii, and that's Cedric Byrd. I do like the formula of keeping college teammates, at least ones that were compatible, keeping them together on a team. We've seen this, or I've seen this work well in the NFL. Examples are going to be pairing up Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase. Both of them played together at LSU. You've got Jalen Hurts with Devonta Smith from Alabama. Also from Alabama, you've got Tua Tagovailoa and Waddle. They both play for Miami. Even in Jacksonville, you have Trevor Lawrence being paired up with Travis Etienne, and they work very well together. And most recently, though they didn't have a good season, they still got it together. You had Derek Carr with his Fresno State wide receiver, Devontae Adams. So I am a strong believer in that system or that formula working, where you keep your quarterback comfortable with the familiar target, and that's exactly what Houston has done here with McDonald and Byrd. Houston will also have some recognizable talent from San Antonio. They have Charles Wiley on the defense, and this guy is a beast. He played for the 2-time Conference USA champ UTSA Roadrunners. Again, this guy is going to be dangerous on the defensive side of the ball, so I'm honestly not looking forward to seeing Houston's defense this year. And last, we have my San Antonio Brahmas. So they kept the format that I like, the 27 on offense and 24 on defense. This is a well-rounded roster. We have 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 6 wideouts, 4 tight ends, 8 offensive linemen, and 3 on special teams. Defense is pretty solid too, with 8 defensive linemen, 6 linebackers, and 10 DBs. The only thing that I would change is I would have 1 less tight end and 1 additional offensive lineman, but I'm not the coach, so I'm going to trust him on this. Again, it's not really even nitpicking. It's just something that I probably would have done myself. The Brahmas are coached by Hall of Famer Hines Ward. You guys might recognize him from his playing days with the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he won 2 Super Bowls and was a one-time Super Bowl MVP. He played wide receiver for Pittsburgh and definitely has an offensive mindset. And I've got to admit, for a first-time head coach, he did a hell of a job putting together this solid, what he calls 51 strong roster. So the Brahmas are one of the few teams that actually have a good problem in the quarterback room, and that's because they have too many options to choose from. And they're all solid options, starting with Jack Coan out of Notre Dame, and then we also have Reed Sinnett out of San Diego State. But it is my belief that QB1 will be Jawan Pass out of Louisville. So both Coan and Sinnett have spent time with NFL teams on NFL rosters, although Sinnett has had the most game day experience, having played several games with the Miami Dolphins whenever Tua Tagovailoa got hurt. Both of them have big arms. They have cannons for arms. They can get you downfield quick. But I believe that Pass will be QB1 just because he is a dual threat quarterback, and I think that's going to be very beneficial in this league. And Jawan Pass is also a product from the same Louisville program that brought us Teddy Bridgewater and Lamar Jackson. But again, in my opinion, it does not matter who starts as QB1, especially when you consider all the targets and weapons that they have around them. Alright, so starting with running back Jaquez Patrick. This was our first round pick, 3rd overall. He is a monster running back, and even though I don't have him shown here, his backup Kalen Ballage is a beast too. We have a very electric wide receiver room with the likes of TJ Vasher out of Texas Tech. A lot of tall, lanky wide receivers, all of them with great hands. And very aggressive tight end room that will be led, I think, by Alize Mack. This guy is a monster. He can block, he can catch, he can open up lanes. So again, all the way around on the offense, we are scary good. And helping to protect the quarterback and open up all of our lanes is going to be a very solid offensive line led by center Luke Juriga, and we also have guard Damian Mama out of USC. The offensive line, again, I'm not going to say we're stacked, but we are solid. It's going to be really tough for any team to get to our quarterback. We also have a defensive line that is capable of breaking through any offensive line with the likes of Ben Davis, who played for both Alabama and Texas. We also have Rico Jeffers and Camille Tingamoa. So these guys are all very explosive linebackers, very capable of breaking through the line and getting to that quarterback. And backing these guys up are our DBs, which again are monsters on defense. We do have Luke Barco and Ryan Lewis, but honestly, any player on the DB side of the ball is going to be dangerous and scary good. The Brahmas just look formidable on each side of the ball. In fact, I read a story that has them projected as the second best option for odds to win it all this year. So with all that being said, now's the time for me to make my predictions. So based off everything that I can see on paper, at least for now, this is how I'm going to see the end of the season going. The final 2 teams in the North will be the Las Vegas Vipers and the DC Defenders. I just think, one, that the Vipers are just too strong in coaching and roster. Again, they have a lot of NFL talent on that team, and DC is just too well-rounded to not be competitive. So I do see these 2 guys in the semifinals for the North, and I think overall Vegas will win out and make it to the championship round. As for the South, I have the Houston Roughnecks, again coached by Wade Phillips. They're going to face off against my San Antonio Brahmas, and this is going to be probably the closest game in the playoffs. I do see this one being real tight, but ultimately the Brahmas will prevail and make it to the championship. We just have too many weapons on both sides of the ball. So that will set up the 2023 XFL championship game between the Las Vegas Vipers and the San Antonio Brahmas. And being that I'm just a little biased, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Brahmas to win it all this season. And that is the final take. That was my first impression of all 51-man rosters for each 8 teams. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please feel free to debate me in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, I know I can be a little biased, but can you blame me? It's kind of hard not to be when you see the team look that good on paper. Please like and subscribe if you guys are enjoying the content. I do appreciate all the follows that I get. Definitely helps the channel out. The content will change a bit once the season starts, and I do hope that you guys follow along for the ride as I chronicle the 2023, hopefully, championship season of the San Antonio Brahmas.